It's great to be back for our regular check-ins. It's a lot had changed since our last one, and oh my God, I'd say it doubled in the last week. So we got plenty.
Okay. Nice, man. Yeah, I love. Well, we've known each other for I don't know, pretty long time actually. But I think the last time we spoke was maybe the last episode. So it's maybe this should be like a regular checkup, but then a bit shorter in between.
Yes.
But I know you're busy, and I think that's also where I wanted to start. Like you recently took your Bitcoin only company Fold public, and since its inception, Fold has undergone several transformations, as we've talked about before, and I think you've also shared a lot on other podcasts. And I just want to start with a question. What are the biggest challenges during this transition, going from a rewards platform connected to Bitcoin to more like a full-fledged financial services company? Can you share a bit about the journey?
I mean, there's so many evolutions going on at the same time, and with Fold and Bitcoin, I think you mentioned just a few of them. Fold, we started really as a rewards company with the idea that we were going to build people's savings, long-term savings, through Bitcoin. But there's a even more upstream issue, is that people don't even have enough money to put into savings in the first place. And so we had to find a mechanism that would allow people to passively earn every day without buying. That's really what the inception and genesis of Fold was. And, fast forward to today, our customers are still earning a ton of Bitcoin passively, but they're living on their Bitcoin. They're converting their paycheck into Bitcoin. They're really straddling two financial systems: the traditional financial system that has all of the wonderful conveniences and connectivity that we know about today, with what we believe is the core of the future financial system, which is Bitcoin. And so for us, starting with rewards to build savings very quickly evolved into, now our customers are saving, have over 20, 30, 40% of their net worth in Bitcoin for our majority of our users. Now they need to make sure that they can still live their life. And so that process of evolving has been a ton of building the debit card, the checking account, the Bitcoin exchange and trading and custody. We're about to have our credit card. So it has definitely meant that we've needed to expand the team, expand what we're great at and our core competencies. And that has been an incredible process at Fold. And I think we've really focused on, number one, let's get the right people in the door. So I think some of the biggest wins over the last 6 months for our company have been the strategic hires that we have to come in, who I think have already made a incredible dent in what we're doing, but also will represent where Fold goes next. And I think you're right. It really starts to look more like a critical part of financial services for those who have chosen to save in Bitcoin. And then underneath all of that, we've also had the company transitioning from a private company to a public company. And so just about everything you can kind of be changing, we have been. And I look at it as more of evolving and kind of getting closer to that original vision that we had, is build long-term savings through Bitcoin. And the company's been doing that by building the infrastructure, the financial connectivity. And then in terms of becoming a public company, it has given us, incredible ability to be transparent, build trust and reputation with people who are still getting used to Bitcoin, and they need a trusted source for that, as well as some of the other tools. Building our Bitcoin company, just did our first Bitcoin convert, increased our holdings by 50%. So everything is changing all at once. But, at the end of the day, we just needed to make sure we had the right people with us.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love about how you started and also what you're doing is kind of like helping people to take the leap and move to Bitcoin, right? I once asked Jeff Booth, what does the future of Bitcoin look like? Like, how do we move into that future? And then he said something like, the future is now, like you can go now. And then I realized that was also what I did, but I think that went through an avenue of studying, like most people in Bitcoin do. But I think what I like about what you do is that you make it very practical. Do you know how people almost want to say like experience moving into the Bitcoin world? Like, what do customers say that kind of like discover Bitcoin through your services, and then eventually also see their savings in Bitcoin grow, right? Like you mentioned, like what is kind of like the impact that you're having on them?
Our initial goal with Fold was build savings, but we also knew there was a more fundamental psychological thing, and that we had to also there's a few ways to educate people about Bitcoin. You can do it front on full frontal Bitcoin standard, and then there's also the idea of get something in people's hands and let it take on a life of its own there. The important thing is it's really hard to get people to do new things. And so for Fold, the idea of a passive way to earn, hey, instead of miles, earn Bitcoin, and hey, open the app every day and you'll get a little bit of Bitcoin here, allowed us to kind of create a muscle memory with people who otherwise would have thought about Bitcoin, maybe bought some and just kind of went away for 12 months. Fold tries to keep a kind of steady tempo of Bitcoin engagement, following it, not hiding the volatility, actually really representing it. And so a lot of these aha moments will come in as people have started to earn a little bit of Bitcoin and start to see in the app, we show how much your Bitcoin has appreciated your rewards because of Bitcoin's own appreciation versus earning fiat rewards. And it actually doesn't take very long, even though we are currently today, or I think in the last week or so, we are at the lowest Bitcoin CAGR, I believe, in history. So it's even in this time when Bitcoin is at its lowest CAGR, it still is an incredible thing to see your own account and the numbers and the value are increasing, both the value of the asset itself, but also the unit of the asset. Because with Fold, you can come back every day and you have 1,000 sats. Now you have 10,000 sats, 15,000 sats, and that never changes. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. And so the product is really trying to build in a muscle that ushers in something brand new. And that's notoriously the hardest thing to do as someone who's building a product, is getting someone to do something new. And so a lot of what Fold has experimented with and built has been entirely in service of how do we make this transition as simple and seamless and valuable as possible.
So fun. I had a conversation yesterday about saving, and that saving is practically dead, right? Like once you understand the debasement of fiat money, you know that it's kind of futile to just save and not do anything with it, right? Like that's why people are forced to invest and all these things. And now that you're talking and I'm thinking about my own experience with Bitcoin, it feels like saving is back, right? Like saving is fun, like being thoughtful and frugal is a fun thing. Like it feels you are doing something responsible, and that's what I kind of had to think of there, is that just giving people that feeling back. I think especially, of course, here I'm focused on millennials. Like this is what we grew up with. Like you got to save,
I mean, I think the idea of savings, that concept has been so eroded, not because it's not a good thing to do, but the mechanics in which people would have saved money are completely debased, eroded in a way that has made that process of saving feel fruitless. And a lot of that has made people lose faith in saving. This is why you get people every single cycle saying, hey, if I, say I believe in Bitcoin and I invest $100 in Bitcoin today, Bitcoin goes to 200,000, I have $200. That doesn't change the financial situation. And so instead of that, I should go gamble and try to get something that has like a 20,000%, increase if I lose it, I just lose $100. And a lot of this concept is because savings has been so eroded and so debased from a mechanical infrastructure level, it has pushed so many others to forget even the of why saving is important. And they're right that the tools aren't working anymore. They're wrong that savings isn't a worthy path. And I think just like Robinhood really accomplished making trading stocks and equities very cool and very fun, I think savings has a similar ability to have that transformation. And it's not because suddenly people are being more frugal. It's that, hey, we actually have a real tool that can deliver on the idea of savings finally. And previous to that, it wasn't there. It'd be, hey, go buy a house, do all these other things that have all proven to be risky and at best not savings at all, because it's all being eroded by the effects of inflation. So we have the tool now, and I think savings is going to have its moment.
Bitcoin custody is evolving, and while self-custody is important, it has its own risks and trade-offs. Onramp is pioneering a new standard, multi-institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure, adding fault tolerance and redundancy to your custody setup. Onramp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated cold storage multi-signature vault, guarded by 3 independent institutional-grade custodians, none of which have unilateral control. Your funds are fully auditable on-chain, cannot be rehypothecated, and can only move or withdrawn at your explicit direction. Multi-institution custody removes the technical, mental, and physical burdens of private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Bitcoin is money, and as the price continues to appreciate, Onramp helps you seamlessly tap into financial services like trading, inheritance, insurance, loans, IRAs, and more, all without compromising on security or accessibility. Check out onrampbitcoin.com through the link below and schedule a consultation with the Onramp team to get to know them and learn more about their offering.
Bitcoin is financial sovereignty, so why compromise when you need liquidity? Meet Debify, the Bitcoin-backed lending platform made by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Debify connects you to institutional-grade liquidity and allows you to borrow fiat or stablecoins, all while keeping your Bitcoin 100% under your control with a non-custodial 3 out of 4 multi-sig escrow solution. Get competitive rates from a global marketplace of institutional-grade lenders, with loan terms that you choose, from 1 month up to a year. There are no hidden fees and there is no rehypothecation, just pure Bitcoin-aligned lending with the highest level of transparency and security. Are you ready to unlock liquidity without ever selling a single sat? Go to debify.com/Bram, that's BRAM, to check out their current lending offers. That's debify.com/Bram. Yeah, I agree. So you went public, of course, as a Bitcoin-only company. Were there any like unexpected reactions to that? Like how was the TradFi or media reaction in general?
I think there's so many ways to look at it, because Fold truly is the first Bitcoin focused financial services company out there. We're operating really in our own lane. When people think about us, you think of miners, you think of TradFi, you think of crypto exchanges, and you think of Bitcoin treasury companies. There's a lot of lenses in which to view us. And the kind of overall takeaway is that there's an extraordinary interest in this. People understand that a Bitcoin financial services company can efficiently acquire Bitcoin for less than it costs to mine Bitcoin without any of the overhead and capex. And so now you have the investment world, the TradFi world, who are really looking at miners take a this is a breath of fresh air with this new model that Fold is bringing to market. So they're very excited and interested. You have those who look at the history of the crypto exchanges, so Coinbase and Kraken and Binance, and you see these huge swings back and forth of bear market volumes cratered 40, 50, 60%. And then they'll come back with a vengeance in bull market. So these really strong cycles. But Fold is not really there as your kind of speculative way to go buy Bitcoin. Fold integrates Bitcoin into your daily finances. And bull market or bear market, you still need to go buy groceries. You still need to pay bills. So over 50% of our volumes are directly tied to people just doing the things they need to do every day. And so we have this great model that's, hey, this isn't about the speculation, hype bubbles popping up and then popping. This is about embedding a new asset into the fabric of people's daily personal financial needs. That's really interesting. And then we have TradFi, who's looking at, why do miles need to be disrupted? Why does the high yield savings account now have a real competitor? And a lot of TradFi is really built on those institutions remaining and growing. Believe that your points and miles are the most valuable thing you can earn. Believe that the peak of savings is through a high yield savings account. And Fold provides a really different alternative to that. And so I think from a few lenses, we're getting a lot of interest because we're challenging both existing stories while also telling our.
Yeah, what I like is that you're playing into this behavior of the air miles and the points and stuff like that. Could you elaborate a bit on that? Like, how does that work now? Because I think in Europe, not everyone, I think in America it's more prominent than here, but of course it's kind of like a trick, to let you make use of, for example, your credit card, and you earn miles, then you can, use that when you book a new plane ticket or whatever. But each mile doesn't really represent a lot of dollars in that sense when you trade it in, right? So what I like about what you're doing is, if you have the same behavior but you trade it in for Bitcoin, you're actually accumulating an absolute finite asset, which is something very different than Delta tokens, or however that works in America.
Yeah, I mean, rewards programs are specifically cash back on credit cards. So every time you swipe a card, you earn a reward. Sometimes that's cash, sometimes that's miles. In Fold's case, you get Bitcoin. But that concept of I spend on my card and I earn rewards is one of the most ubiquitous things in American financial culture. Every single family has their own strategy around this, or has their own alignment. And a massive industry has grown up around it. All card programs competing, all offering different rewards. And it has become so important that these programs have not only become larger than the businesses that they used to support. So airlines are now, some of the largest aspects of their business is their airline mile programs. It's not their flying. It's not their airplane business. They are essentially points and miles companies that have become so large because they've become so critical and so embedded in specifically the culture of American spending habits. And so they're chasing status or airlines to save up for their next vacation. It truly has become another savings account for most Americans. And actually, the Department of Transportation just has launched an investigation into these airline miles programs, because the great thing is that Americans have looked at their rewards as another savings account, and they rely on that. But at the same time, these programs are constantly devalued. Every year, a mile will be worth a little bit less, sometimes 20%, 50% less. And it's part of the incentive model for these programs that the rewards are ultimately worth less and less.
Yeah.
And Fold turns around and says, well, what if we gave you a reward that is worth more and more? So our incentive is not to devalue your points to get ahead, but our incentive is for your points to be worth as much as possible so that you can do more business with us. You have more purchasing power. You have more savings power. We're much more aligned with the success of our customers. And ultimately, you're earning the scarcest asset on the planet. And one of the things that I think just goes overlooked is how powerful a 1.5% or 2% reward is on all your spending. That plus Bitcoin can achieve incredible results and ultimately build a savings account that's probably larger than many people's existing savings accounts today. And I think this nuance is really just being realized, and the tools are just coming to market. So that I think in the next 2 to 3 years, Bitcoin rewards is going to surpass airline miles as the preferred reward for U.S. consumers, which will be a complete phase shift.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you described about miles is like fiat on fiat, right? And it also makes me think of, it's a marketing ploy in a sense, like they don't really want everyone to have a lot of miles and then actually spend it on something that costs real energy, right? Like flying a plane. And so what they actually make more money on is probably you using their branded credit card, right? Because you wanted those miles. Yeah, it's interesting that this is a little sidestep, but like in fiat, in the fiat money system, you can play the fiat games, right? Whereas and I think we talked about something similar before, like in the Bitcoin money system, you can try to play the fiat games, but it just won't work because if other people are more aligned with the principles and values that emanate from Bitcoin, people are just going to move over and use that, right? And in that sense, and I wonder what you think actually. For me, that feels like more like real capitalism, like more like real, just like real competition in this money.
It's because when you distort the base layer of money, all decisions made on top of that are also inherit that distortion. And so I think we did talk about this on our last one, but this idea of, fiat games. And because it really is that. And if you look around at some of the most ubiquitous programs or behaviors that are embedded, you start to see that a lot of these are actually games created by fiat that are enabled by fiat. And so credit card points is one of these games. And you can go to Reddit and you can go to, our points maxer or all of these credit. And there's an entire game. And the people who play that game are all aspects of the socioeconomic spectrum. Everyone is trying to game it to optimize for the rules that have been stated, right? And there are a ton of loopholes and there are a ton of ways to get ahead if you have that. Now, you also look around at, financial independence, retire early. That is also kind of a game of the idea of completely max in your working as early as possible, be saving in equities that never actually will get you ahead in fiat. And so the game is just self-sustaining the game. It's only it's wringing out more productivity without delivering the reward to you, the game player. And all these fiat games ultimately probably come down to that, is these are games designed to squeeze as much out of you as the producer and to give you as little of that reward as possible by debasing the fiat money. In Bitcoin, you try those games and those games break. And that's what the whole, blow-ups of 2019, 2020 of FTX, and those were fiat games being played in Bitcoin. And those physics don't work. You will blow up. And again, it's like what it is. It's a lot about looking at the world of, which game is this? Whose game is this? Can I play? And can I choose my game?
I really hope people understand what you just said. Like this, I think it's very profound. Like once you understand what you just said, you will realize that, I talk about it like this. Like most people think that in the fiat money system, they are an actor playing in the game. But once you realize that you are a subject, then that might be, I'm saying might be, your motivation to actually leave that game, right? Like I don't know. Does that make sense? That's what I'm thinking about. And even the fire people, I have a little bone to pick with them. Like when I'm on Reddit, people are like, oh, what should I do? And this and that. And like all these analytical guys. And I'm just like, study Bitcoin. I just say study Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I get crazy downvotes, And I talked with Trey Sellers. I don't know if you know Trey, also on the pod. And he's like all into fire. And he has this Fire BTC newsletter, or Substack that's really good. And yeah, I jokingly sent to him like these topics on the Reddit fire the fire subreddit, where I'm like, why do these very intelligent, very analytical, risk averse mainly people, why don't they get it? And I had to think of a tweet that I posted like day before yesterday, where someone said, where can people put their money so that it doesn't go poof when the stock market implodes and FDIC is dismantled? And then I think like people are looking for solutions, and Bitcoin just stares them in the face, but it also sounds too good to be true. And I think if we're really honest, it is too good to be true, but it does work, and you can verify it for yourself, right? Like, it's so profound that you don't believe it. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you went through your own journey.
It is too good to be true, because it is such a rare opportunity to be able to adopt this tool when it is monetizing itself.
Yes.
Bitcoin's going to actually just make a lot more sense. Everyone's going to understand it when Bitcoin doesn't increase by 60% year over year in 50 years, when we're, increasing 10% a year. And that's what it is. People are going to get it. And that's going to be more there. I like what you said about those people that think they understand that there's a game and, hey, they can opt out.
Mm-hmm.
In fiat, it gets so twisted, because then you have this idea of, like the Dave Ramseys of the world, who in many ways can call out, hey, this is corrupt. These financial tools are built to, extract from you. So don't use a credit card. Don't use any of these things, because they have interest rates. So he's advocating, hey, everything should be done in cash, use debit cards only. And he totally disregards the fact that by doing that, by not playing the fiat game and using the fiat tools of credit, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. Why wouldn't you take a loan out at a 3-4% rate over a long duration when inflation is going to get you at 5-6%? That you're forced, like, if you really want to squeeze the fiat games together, you need to really play it. And you get these reactionary things like Dave Ramsey, who should be so primed for Bitcoin. Fire should be so primed for Bitcoin.
Yes.
But it completely,
like, even easier, right? Like, it takes way less work eventually. Yeah, that's what's surprising me.
We've been playing around on the Bitcoin Rewards credit card, and kind of in a way tangentially talking about these games of fiat games and Bitcoin games. And one of the easiest distinctions is, like you just said, the Bitcoin game is stack sats and stay humble, and it's very, very easy. Besides the volatility and upside, it's once you can get beyond that, it's about as simple and low emotion as you can get. But to play the fiat games and to win those fiat games, the amount of mental energy, physical energy that needs to be exerted just to get a slight edge, when the other option is stack sats and chill, I think that's ultimately going to be one of the most compelling things. A part of this is, like, people today outside of Bitcoin, you try to get more mainstream audience. You're talking about just a family, and you have everyone yelling at them, what, you guys need to be in NVIDIA. You need to, hey, your son should be gambling on meme coin XYZ. That's how you get ahead in this world. You need to be a hustler. You need to do all this stuff. That is extremely tiresome. It is not inspiring. And it's like, what the hell? My business is running a contracting company, or I have a small business, and now I need to be a financial expert in all of these insane financial machinations for my family to get ahead. I thought I could just produce what I produce and do that well. But in the fiat games, that's not enough. In Bitcoin, that actually is enough, is to produce something of value and quality and save in Bitcoin. That actually is it. And it's like one of those, the left curve, right curve, bell curve memes of the IQ. It is the guy on the train in the shadows against the wall, and the other one looking out. And, there's something very optimistic, something very, that for once asks a lot less of you. Hey, do less to get ahead. That is a really compelling thing that, again, getting beyond the volatility is definitely a thing that you need to understand. But beyond that, it's a much simpler life. And I think a lot of people, that message alone is going to resonate.
If you have your Bitcoin in self-custody, where are you keeping your Bitcoin seed words? For me, there's only one way, and it's backing up my seed phrase with stamp seed. It's a single durable plate without any parts or materials. Stamp your words into solid titanium, which is fire-resistant, water-resistant, and built to last. Unlike etching or engraving, stamp seed's patented tools help you to deeply stamp every letter for permanent readability, making it easy for you to protect your generational wealth. Don't risk losing your seed phrase on paper. Get a stamp seed plate for unmatched protection. You can use code BRAM, that's BRAM, for 15% off at stampseed.com.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe the title of this video should be Modern Money Gives You Perpetual Anxiety and Bitcoiners Just Chill. Something like that. I mean, but it is really true. It's so interesting, right? Because you can only get the benefits once you get these benefits. What I think we both have experienced is just literally more mind space to hone in on our craft and work on something that we are trying to build with in my case, I'd say with way less anxiety than when I was really focused on fiat money. And I haven't really put my finger on it yet, but I think it's just because I know that I have, I don't know, multiple block rewards of 20, 50, and 60, and so something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there is, everyone has their own reasoning around, what gives them the mind space or something.
Yeah, and I think back to when we first interacted. That I was living in San Francisco. This was your startup stash days, I believe. Easy money, low interest money, absolutely flowing into Silicon Valley, and a lot of the culture there was this hustle, startup mentality, move fast, break things, and there's a lot of beauty that definitely came out of that persists to this day. But also, you realize all of that was just greased by it was another money game, fiat game that was centered around either Silicon Valley or the connected, internet of people also participating. That it was a pure money game in a lot of ways that had access to capital in ways that were easier than ever, access to tools. But what was the end game? There was so much wasted effort. And I think Bitcoin, in some respects, it not only allows you to escape the perpetual anxiety machine of fiat, but it also allows you to escape the perpetual motivation or dream machine, a nightmare machine of fiat, where fiat is removing that end goal of like what is really important. It distorts what's important in many ways, not just your the anxieties, but the long term.
Yeah, it distorts the journey.
Yes,
towards whatever your goal is. I like that. Yeah. Maybe a nice bridge then to, because I wanted to talk about so you went public, but you're also a Bitcoin Treasury company. I think around 1,500 Bitcoin now. I recently had a conversation with Jeff Walton and also Matt Cole, where we actually talked about Bitcoin as the hurdle rate, and I think it kind of ties into what we just talked about. Like, if you know that you are saving in and or protecting your wealth with Bitcoin, then anything that you could sell it for, the meme is kind of like, sell for what? That I think resonates stronger and stronger the more and more you understand Bitcoin. And that's why, everything that you could spend money on is going to be measured against the appreciation of Bitcoin over the long run, which actually makes you very diligent, or forces you, I'd say, to be very diligent about what you spend your personal, or in your case also like your company capital on. And that's why we talk about Bitcoin as a hurdle rate. Well, you adopted that strategy too, and yeah, I just want to ask you, like, how do you explain the Bitcoin Treasury strategy? Because, for example, what Michael Saylor uses as an argument is like, okay, if you have extra cash, you're basically forced to do something with it, right? If you have fiat cash, and then you're going to do an acquisition, or you do R&D, or you do, whatever. He has this whole list of options, right? Where, his conclusion is, no, buying Bitcoin is better. And then I'm going to look at like all these other things. Yeah. How do you look at that? Because for most people, branching out or hiring more people and growing faster and faster is like the way to go. But I think once you adopt the Bitcoin treasury strategy, then that kind of also flips.
Yeah, I think it adds incredible level of discipline to running a company that, like you said, the hurdle rate is redefined, and it's not just the hurdle rate on what your opportunity costs of pursuing growth or a new feature or whatever it is. It's also looking in the past as well of, there is no better place. If we were founded on the idea of building long-term savings through for our customers through Bitcoin. We believe the same thing for our company, right? So Align, we started with a much simpler approach to the Bitcoin treasury. Now, when we talk about the treasury strategy and the Saylor playbook, it's a very different thing. It's a very well developed thing. There's a lot of financial engineering involved, a lot of leveraging the fiat games to have Bitcoin gains, which has done incredible things for the likes of MicroStrategy. But when I think of the genesis of Fold's treasury, it's much more simple, much more left curve. It is, I don't have a better place to put our capital when it's not being used, one, than Bitcoin. And two, I need to make sure that every decision and feature and hire that we make, we are essentially making a bet on outperforming Bitcoin. And that leads to a level of clarity and draws down the opportunity set to a much smaller field of vision that I think has kept us much more focused and ultimately has put us ahead. And so I don't necessarily look at a Bitcoin treasury first and foremost as how do we absolutely lever the company and max Bitcoin per share for our shareholders. I look at it first and foremost as this is the foundation that a good company is built on, and can not only just be a treasury that holds value, but actually allows us to add value back to the operating company. And that's what makes Fold very different than a MicroStrategy or a MetaPlanet, where the relationship between the operating company and the treasury are actually symbiotic. The operating company exists to accumulate more Bitcoin because we have Bitcoin native revenues and a Bitcoin financial services platform that we are able to, we believe, holding Bitcoin in our retained earnings and Bitcoin is better. But also, how can that treasury, as it outpaces the value of other investments we could have made, how can that come back to the operating company and bring on new opportunities for us that wouldn't have existed? So as you're building a Bitcoin financial services company, you start to realize, hey, a lot of the fiat tools that make fiat financial services work don't work for Bitcoin. Like, how do you insure Bitcoin on dollar denominated values? It doesn't quite match up, and it leads to a lot of these weird frictions and collisions. So having a large Bitcoin treasury, in my opinion, is going to mean that Fold is going to be able to offer more innovative Bitcoin native financial services, whether that's insurance, lending, credit worthiness, lowering the cost of capital. Though I believe Fold is really going to nail this symbiotic relationship that recognizes the value of where Saylor has done about and how to accumulate more Bitcoin, but also has a way to add value back to the operating company. And that's ultimately what Fold's here to prove out over the next 12 to 18 months.
I'm thinking about a business idea about a Bitcoin credit worthiness check, and with like a zero knowledge proof type thing, where you like sign a message, and then you see a balance, and then you connect that to whatever you want to use the credit score for, right? And then you basically get a verified like signed message that just says like you're credit worthy, and like the person you're giving that to can also check that on chain, something like that. Well,
I'll have a few people to send you to who I think we'll have a good conversation around that. I think I like, when you look at our, you can just take the credit card, for example, and we start off saying, how can we integrate Bitcoin into traditional financial tools to achieve a 10x outcome for our customers? The number one is the rewards. That is already proven that we can achieve a better outcomes for our customers than them earning fiat or miles. But we also look at, well, today, the best credit cards are only available to a very limited set of consumers, and they get the best credit interest rates and they get the best rewards. Well, how can we use Bitcoin to expand that lens of credit worthiness to have access to great interest, to have access to great rewards? And Bitcoin provides a wonderful way of doing that. Yes, we have a FICO score, but what happens if you can also prove you have some level of ownership over Bitcoin that would, and regular purchasing and saving in Bitcoin that gives signals that, hey, this is a credit worthy customer that we can extend great credit to and great rewards to. Suddenly now we're looking at a credit card who previously could only service 20% of the population, now can service 50% of the population. And so that alone will lead to an explosion of access to good money that people actually have good terms on, that, who knows the level of productivity that and, savings that can be generated out of that. So I think a lot of ways we can just integrate Bitcoin or tweak into these existing tools that just achieve these really fundamental changes in what those products did and who they could serve.
I've also heard you talk about, how to scale Bitcoin eventually, right? Like if more people get into Bitcoin, like how do we scale that? And yeah, I just want to ask you, like, what do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of Bitcoin scaling? I mean, you also integrate Lightning. Some people say that dilutes the settlement layer. There's all these discussions, and yeah, I have some ideas, but I'll let you go first.
I think one of the most misunderstood things about Bitcoin scaling is that not recognizing that Bitcoin is not falling from the sky into an environment where there is no existing financial infrastructure. There's a lot of financial infrastructure. And beginning with Hal Finney talking about Bitcoin banks all the way up until now, the idea of leveraging aspects of the traditional financial ecosystem to scale Bitcoin has been around forever. And we're seeing that there today. And so a lot of the, idea is, hey, the more that Bitcoin scales through the traditional financial system, the more Bitcoin will be captured. And that is absolutely like the right thing to be thinking about on how we can have a counterbalance. But the idea that Bitcoin's going to scale without the likes of BlackRock doing an ETF and banks holding it, there was never that outcome was on the table. That would mean Bitcoin doesn't succeed at all. The fact that it is why these traditional ecosystem is coming to figure out a way how they can scale for their own purposes, Bitcoin. And so one misconception is that shouldn't happen or is not happening. The reality is that was always going to happen. And it's always on us, incumbent on us to create the forge ahead on another path. And I think Lightning has always been lauded as that option. I and Fold were one of the first companies to actually create a commercial service on the Lightning Network. We integrated Domino's Pizza into the Lightning Network to allow anybody to order pizza via Lightning, just as like a fun experiment. It was very popular. But today, Fold doesn't really support Lightning 100%. We use it in certain areas in the business for things that really matter, and have been demanded by customers. And I think today we are definitely beyond the, hey, Lightning is not the be all end all. There are going to be other options. And I think the most cultural defining moment of that is Jack Dorsey himself the other day saying, I think we can do better than Lightning. I think there's more things that we can do. And I think that's really being understood today, that there's going to be a proliferation of this, and it will be the TradFi ecosystem. It will be Lightning doing these things. And there's a few other scaling proposals out there and things that are getting real momentum and progress that will do will give Bitcoin other properties to scale. But, Fold is, a lot of people want us to add Lightning, but in many cases, it didn't make sense for us to do it. We weren't going to do it for a virtue signaling way. We wanted it to add value to a lot of customers and to make Fold's business, better. And so we've done that in a few ways. We have a few more ways that we're going to do it. I think one of the best announcements this week was Voltage announcing integration with BitGo. And I think they're going to do a great job of making Lightning more accessible to more service providers. But we haven't found the end. And in fact, Fold has found scaling through the traditional ecosystem the best way to achieve maximum adoption. And that's why we have such a large user base putting up such big numbers. It's because we didn't go full Lightning. It's because we did rely on the existing ecosystem to accelerate this journey.
What I kind of think, and I love the Trojan horse analogy. I love how, you are building together with a company like Visa, like whatever you think of the TradFi world. If they say like Bitcoin is a thing I should pay attention to, we should be happy, I think, because that makes sure that Bitcoin, is really established in the world, that it's really not going away, and that as the more and more people come across Bitcoin, learn what it is, why it is better money, they will go towards, I think, everything that we just previously talked about, right? Yeah. But that it takes that time. And I think if we trust that a decentralized computer protocol that can be adopted voluntarily by anyone can permeate through the world without any resistance, basically, anyone who finds it and thinks this is worth paying attention to and putting energy and time in, like they can adopt it, they can share it further, etc. Right? So as long as that is happening, and we know that the longer Bitcoin exists, the more people are going to figure it out and find it and adopt it and move away from fiat money, right? And there will be players from the TradFi world that actually adapt to the new money, and a lot of them will probably also die, but that's okay. Like that is how it goes, I would say. I hope that's quite a ramble, but I hope that makes sense. Like, because if we just keep that faith, if this is going where we think it's going, is it still growing? Is it still decentralized and secure, as Jeff Booth said? If it's yes, then it doesn't really matter how it happens.
Yeah, I think we're often, we get a lot of requests for what Fold should do next to support Bitcoin. And Lightning is always, it's the easiest example. And everyone's common thing is, well, you need to support Bitcoin not only as a savings tool, but a medium of exchange. And we today support Lightning payments. You can send Bitcoin over Lightning. You can exchange it for a gift card. And, we have limited use cases that support it. But what they miss is, today, over 50% of all transactions on Fold through our TradFi rails are related to using Bitcoin as a means of payment. So whether that is moving Bitcoin into your checking account to then pay a bill, or to fund a debit card purchase, or to buy Bitcoin, and earn a reward. You'll look at most exchanges and their numbers are going to be, 80% buy volume today. Fold has a much more balanced look, where you say, wait, there's a lot more sellers on Fold. Why? Well, those aren't actually sellers. Those are people who have brought Bitcoin not only to their means of savings, but their medium of exchange. And I would guess that the amount of Bitcoin that we have embedded into everyday payments is a significant is can stack up against some of the largest Lightning nodes and how they are routing payments. And we like Lightning because it is a peer-to-peer ecosystem, and we support that. That's great. But to say that the only way to support Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, or at least the idea that people use Bitcoin for things, can only happen on a thing like Lightning is just fundamentally not true. And it shows why, the approach we did is great complement to all the other stuff going on. And it's different than all the other exchanges. Our competitors will be talking about 90% buy volume, which everyone likes and thinks it's great because it's just everyone's buying Bitcoin. But it also means a lot of people aren't using their Bitcoin. Those numbers are very different on Fold.
I agree. Yeah, it's interesting that we went this direction, but I think as long as I'm thinking like we should say for now, we should add like for now. For now, it is like this because you can conceptualize it that it should be a certain way, like a medium of exchange. Do you know how many smart people that are into crypto and would be into Bitcoin are actually focusing all their talent on the wrong thing, right? Like it takes time for people to pay attention to something, right? And so just because we can doesn't mean we should. I think I commented also something on when Jack was talking about the failing of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Like I think you need more patience. I think this takes a lot of time. And the use case of saving, of protecting yourself against fiat debasement is the most understood use case possibly that we could talk about, right? And everything else that could be done on Bitcoin, yes, I agree, is probably later, much later than we would want. I want to add to that, right? And I think if we can get to a place where Bitcoin is like the base settlement layer, that we basically fix the fraud at the layer zero of a monetary system, then we basically won. Does that make sense? Because whatever is built on top, strategy coin or Visa coin or whatever, doesn't really matter as long as they adhere to the rules and principles of Bitcoin as the base settlement layer. Like you can fuck around in your third layer super blah blah coin ecosystem. But yeah, if you can't settle on the base layer, then you're still going to blow up. So you can try to play that game. But down to the core, if it's Bitcoin, then we already won. Because then slowly the companies that adhere to the principles and values of Bitcoin will, go to the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still convinced that we Bitcoin companies can win by purely doing a better job about calling out the fiat games that we have discussed. Because the issue up until this point is there was no other game to play. There wasn't any realistic game that could play. Like you can't go and play the gold game and satisfy everything people are looking at Bitcoin. There was no other game to play. And now we have that. And I think now that we have the tools, we have all these great companies that have been building for 5-10 years that have viable alternatives and that have matured to a state where we can not only call out the fiat game, but we can provide another game that's even better, that puts them ahead. And that way we're not going full on, I'm going to spread the word about the gospel of Bitcoin. We're just talking about the fiat games that nobody wants to play. Nobody wants to play those games anymore. And if there was another option, we can get to that. But let's talk about these fiat games first.
I love that we went this way, and I knew you and I were gonna like go into a new type of direction. I feel this is a interesting new conversation. I'd love to hear what like other people think of this, because, and also it's like you can read my mind, because my next question is, or what I wanted to talk about, and kind of what you just said, is Bitcoin is a mirror. It's like a parallel financial system that just exists, and by existing and sharing what its characteristics are, it's also showing what those characteristics are in the fiat money system, but also you're able to actually compare something new that you didn't know about before. And why Bitcoin is so interesting is that you can actually verify it for yourself.
Right.
And that is mind-blowing if you think about it, right? And once you understand that, okay, so I can just move to a different money that I can verify myself, and I don't have to trust any other company, person, whatever to do that. I mean, that's the profoundness for me.
Yeah, you can. I love the carry on the mirror analogy. Bitcoin is a mirror that for the first time provides you a vantage point to see your own position in the fiat game.
Yes,
See the fiat game. But at the same time, it gives you complete verifiability of the reflection. So you can verify that the reflection is true as well as see the reflection. So it's not another distortion to something else. You can verify it.
Yes, and it's a constant confrontation with certain elements of the fiat money system that you are forced to opinionate about, right? Like, okay, so now I know that works like this. What do I think of that? Like, am I going to, well, to tie it back to the beginning, what we talked about, like, am I going to stay a subject or am I going to be an actor? And that, I mean, we could probably talk for a whole nother hour, like about what are the effects of that, right? Mentally, spiritually, once you basically understand that you have agency, that there's an option that gives you financial agency, basically. Yeah, wow, man, I love Bitcoin, dude.
I think you're right. There's a whole kind of thing to continue to dig into about. I love the idea, the arching Bitcoin as a mirror, and you can go down into all of these different reflections. We talked about a couple of them today: the rewards points, the fire people, the Dave Ramsey, like all of us. You can actually, it is an incredible tool to look at that, and you can see. I think it provides a great way of analyzing that. That's not full on to Bitcoin, although we'll end up there. But we can talk about these games. We can go over the Olympic game, the Olympic fiat games, and we can go over each of the various events that you can participate in to try to make it out ahead. But you'll ultimately be,
Yeah, what I like, to tie it also back into what you're doing a bit, like the credit card is kind of like a gateway to turn fiat into Bitcoin by just doing your thing in the fiat world. Like you're slowly escaping to this other money system, right? Yeah, I love that. And I think there's different ways to help people bridge that gap, right? I think, what you're doing is one, a podcast is one, a book or whatever, like whatever we're trying to share, to show. Or, well, I think to create different touch points for different people where they could be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I should pay attention. And I think that is also why it's going to take a long time, longer than we would want. Yeah, because this is literally a one-by-one education. So, I think the patience is needed, but that's,
well,
I think we all,
your mirror analogy hit me once more. There's a kind of meme going around that was going on TikTok, where it was these people who were standing in front of mirrors and they'd put a towel in front of them. And then someone would be looking at them from another angle and say, "Can you see me?" And the person behind the sheet would say, they would say yes. And the person behind the sheet would say, "Well, how can the mirror know I'm here? The mirror can't see me. I'm behind a sheet." And the person over there would be like, "Well, because I have a different vantage point that I can see you. The angle is different." But most people in the fiat games believe that. They have.
Well, I like that.
They don't even know that it's all about this ability to be able to view yourself from another vantage point that reveals things. And we're dealing with a level of education about this subject that most people are just holding up the towel in front of them saying, "How can the mirror see me?" So we have a long way to go.
Yes. We're enchanted by the fiat money.
Yes.
Is what I say, All right. I want to be mindful of your time. So last question. Yeah. So what makes you most bullish for Bitcoin in, let's say, the next 10 years?
Next 10 years, I think 10 years is plenty. I think we've accelerated in ways beyond my wildest imaginations, where the world we're living in today, I would probably have said that's the 10-year goal. I'm honestly most bullish, where the company is at, just building it to a very personal level. We have an incredible team at Fold, but not only that, we have recruited what I think is one of the best teams, not only in Bitcoin, but in tech at large. And I think this is the right team that I'm going to absolutely have an incredible time building what that future will be over the next 10 years. And that's just a really special thing. So I just get to continue to participate in it, which is what I'm most excited about.
Love that, man. Well, thanks again for such a fun conversation. And we're definitely going to do it again. So stay in touch, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you can click here to find more just like it, and click here to find all Bitcoin for Millennials podcast episodes. Also, please like this video if you want to help shine a light on the message of Bitcoin, and subscribe to my channel to stay connected. I hope to see you for a next episode. Bye.